Have you ever noticed how money can disappear without a single dramatic mistake? Not through one reckless decision, not through a huge purchase, but through 100 small moments that barely register. A late-night food delivery, a subscription that renews in the background, a sale that feels too good to miss, a quick tap at checkout. Then payday comes again, and the same question returns. Where did it all go? Now imagine a different kind of relationship with money. Not one built on guilt, complicated spreadsheets, or the pressure to become perfect overnight. Imagine a quiet practice that asks you to pause, write down what matters, and make the next decision a little more intentional than the last. A practice that began in Japan more than a century ago, with nothing more complicated than a household notebook. It is called Kakeibo, pronounced Kakeibo. The word is commonly translated as household account book or household financial ledger. But that translation misses the heart of the idea. Kakeibo is not just a place to record numbers. It is a way of paying attention to the life your money is creating. In 1904, Japanese journalist and educator Hani Motoko published an early Kakeibo in the women's magazine Fujin no Tomo. It was designed to help households manage their finances through regular written reflection. That detail matters. Kakeibo was not invented as a trick for getting rich. It was created as a practical tool for running a household with greater clarity, purpose, and care. Today, we have more financial tools than Hani Motoko could ever have imagined. Banking apps can show us balances instantly. Payment apps can complete a purchase in seconds. A spreadsheet can calculate an entire year of expenses before breakfast. And yet many people still feel disconnected from their money. The issue is not a lack of information. It is the absence of a pause. Kakeibo creates that pause. It turns money from something that passes silently through your phone into something you can see, name, and reflect on. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to start your own Kakeibo with any notebook, how to set a realistic savings target, how to categorize spending without making yourself miserable, and how to use a short weekly review to improve month by month. First, let's be clear about what Kakeibo is not. It is not a promise that a notebook will solve debt, low income, emergencies, or rising costs. It is not a replacement for professional financial advice. And it is not a competition to see who can spend the least. Kakeibo is an awareness practice. It helps you see your choices more clearly, so you can make better ones within the reality of your own life. That is why it can feel surprisingly powerful. Most budgets begin with restriction. They tell you what you are not allowed to do. Kakeibo begins with a more useful question. What do I want my money to make possible? Security? A future home? Less stress at the end of the month? A course that helps your career? A trip you will remember? When the purpose is clear, a budget becomes less like a punishment and more like a plan. The traditional Kakeibo method revolves around 4 simple questions. The first is, how much money do I have? The second, how much would I like to save? The third, how much am I actually spending? And the fourth, how can I improve? For questions, no complicated formulas, but used consistently, they can change the way you notice money. Let's walk through them with a realistic example. Imagine that your monthly take-home income is 60,000 rupees. Before deciding what to buy, open a fresh page in your notebook and write the amount down. Then list the payments that are already committed: rent, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments, school fees, transport passes, and any other essential fixed costs. Let's say these fixed costs add up to 30,000 rupees. Your first page now tells the truth about your month. You earn 60,000 rupees. 30,000 is already committed. That leaves 30,000 before you have made a single choice about groceries, social plans, shopping, learning, or surprises. This is the first question of Kakeibo in action. How much money do I have available? Not what you hope will be available. Not what you may earn someday. What is real now? The next question is where the method becomes quietly radical. How much would I like to save? Most people save at the end of the month, if something happens to be left. Kakeibo invites you to choose savings before the month gets busy. In our example, perhaps you decide that 10,000 rupees will go toward your emergency fund, investments, debt reduction, or another named goal. Move it to a separate account if you can. If 10,000 is not realistic, choose 2,000. If 2,000 is not realistic, choose an amount that is. The habit begins with a decision you can keep. After setting aside 10,000, you have 20,000 rupees for variable spending. This is not a failure. It is a boundary that makes choices easier. You are no longer asking, "Can I afford everything?" You are asking, "What deserves a place inside these 20,000 rupees?" That is the difference between spending by accident and spending on purpose. Kakeibo traditionally groups variable spending into four broad categories: needs, wants, culture, and unexpected expenses. The exact labels can be adapted to your life, but the distinction is useful because it shows you not only how much you spend, but why you spend it. Needs are the things that keep daily life functioning: groceries, basic transport, medicine, necessary household supplies, and essential bills that were not already listed as fixed costs. Wants are the things that bring comfort or fun but are not necessary for survival: restaurant meals, entertainment, clothes you do not need right now, beauty purchases, upgrades, and spontaneous treats. Wants are not bad. A good budget makes room for enjoyment. It simply asks you to recognize enjoyment as a choice, rather than disguising it as a need. The third category is culture. This is one of the most thoughtful parts of Kakeibo. Culture can include books, a class, a museum visit, music, a language lesson, or an experience that expands your understanding and enriches your life. Of course, every purchase can be rationalized as self-improvement, so be honest. But do not assume that every non-essential expense is wasteful. A life built only around cutting costs can become small. Kakeibo is about aligning your spending with your values, not eliminating everything that brings meaning. The fourth category is unexpected expenses: a repair, a medical cost, a family event, a replacement charger, an urgent trip, or something else that interrupts the plan. Calling these expenses unexpected does not mean they are unimportant. It simply helps you see how often life asks for flexibility. Over a few months, this category can reveal whether you need a larger buffer for irregular costs. Here is what the 20,000 rupee example might look like. You plan 9,000 for needs, groceries, local transport, and basics. You give yourself 5,000 for wants, a few meals out, entertainment, and personal spending. You set aside 3,000 for culture, perhaps a book, a workshop, or a hobby you genuinely use. And you leave 3,000 for unexpected expenses. It is only an example, not a rule. Your numbers may look completely different. The purpose is to give each rupee a job before the month gives it one for you. Let's make that even more concrete. Suppose the first week of the month looks like this. You spend 1,800 rupees on groceries, 600 on local transport, and 400 on medicine. Those belong in needs. You spend 700 on a dinner with friends and 500 on a streaming subscription. Those belong in wants. You buy a book for 600 and register for an online workshop for 1,200. Those belong in culture. Then your phone charger stops working and costs 900 to replace. That goes into unexpected expenses. At the end of the week, your notebook does something a bank statement often does not. It tells a story. It shows that your spending was not simply too much or too little. It shows where it went. In this example, you can see that you made room for friendship, learning, health, and a genuine surprise. You can also see whether the plan is holding. Perhaps your culture budget is already nearly used, but you are happy with that because the workshop matters. Perhaps the wants category is moving faster than expected, so you choose a lower-cost weekend. The value is in being able to decide while the month is still in progress. Now comes the part that makes Kakeibo more than a one-page budget. During the month, record what you actually spend. A simple entry is enough: date, item, amount, and category. Tuesday, vegetables, 600 needs. Thursday, coffee with a friend, 350 wants. Saturday, online course, 1,200 culture. You do not need beautiful handwriting. You do not need to record every transaction at the exact second it happens. You only need a small, reliable ritual, 5 minutes each evening or 10 minutes every few days. Why write it by hand? Handwriting is not magic, and a phone note is better than tracking nothing. But writing can slow the process down. Studies of note-taking suggest that writing by hand can encourage more active processing than merely typing word for word. With spending, the point is similar. The act of recording creates a moment of attention. You have to name what you bought. You have to place it in a category. You have to look at the amount. That little bit of friction can make an invisible habit visible. Modern payments make this especially relevant. Contactless cards, stored payment details, and one-click checkout are convenient. Convenience is not the enemy. But research on the psychology of payment suggests that less tangible ways of paying can soften the immediate feeling of parting with money. The solution is not necessarily to stop using digital payments. It is to build your own moment of awareness after the payment. Kakeibo gives you that moment. At the end of each week, do a short review. Add up the categories. Then ask a gentler question than most budgets ask. Instead of saying, "Did I fail?" ask, "What am I learning?" Maybe your food delivery spending rises on the evenings you work late. That is not proof that you lack discipline. It may be a signal that you need easier groceries at home, a batch cooking routine, or a small convenience budget you can afford without stress. Maybe you spend more on shopping after difficult days. That may be a clue about comfort, not character. A useful weekly review can take less than 15 minutes. First, total each category. Second, compare it with the amount you had planned. Third, circle one expense that felt genuinely worthwhile. This matters because a budget should teach you what to keep, not only what to cut. Fourth, underline one expense you would handle differently next time. Then write a single sentence. Next week, I will make this easier by. The answer might be taking lunch to work twice, unsubscribing from one marketing list, or keeping an emergency snack in my bag so I do not order food late at night. There are a few beginner mistakes worth avoiding. The first is making the plan too strict. If you give yourself no room for fun, the notebook will quickly become a record of broken rules. Include a realistic wants category. The second is forgetting irregular expenses, annual insurance, gifts, repairs, festivals, school costs, and travel. You may not know the exact amount, but putting aside even a small monthly buffer makes these costs less disruptive. The third is treating one difficult week as proof that the whole method does not work. A budget is a practice, not a verdict. The fourth mistake is using categories to hide from the truth. If every shopping purchase becomes culture and every restaurant meal becomes necessary, the notebook loses its value. You do not need to be harsh. You need to be honest. The category is not there to make you look good. It is there to help future you understand present you. And the fifth mistake is tracking without reflecting. Recording expenses is useful, but the monthly question, "How can I improve?" is where information becomes change. This is where Kakeibo becomes a kind of mirror. It does not shame you for your patterns. It helps you see them. And once you can see a pattern, you can design a response. If online sales trigger impulse buying, remove shopping apps from your home screen and make a 24-hour waiting rule. If social plans are important to you, give them a category and a limit instead of pretending you will never spend on them. If small subscriptions are adding up, write each one down and decide whether it still earns its place. At the end of the month, return to the fourth question, "How can I improve?" Do not turn this into a dramatic promise. Do not say, "Next month I will never order food, never buy clothes, and save half my salary." That kind of promise is often a reaction, not a plan. Choose one adjustment that feels specific and humane. I will pack lunch twice a week. I will transfer my savings on payday. I will pause before purchases above 1,000 rupees. I will review my subscriptions on the first Sunday of the month. You can also make the savings goal more meaningful by naming it. Savings can feel abstract. 3 months of rent, my travel fund, a career break buffer, my parents' medical fund, or my first investment account gives the decision a human purpose. When the goal has a name, saying no to a random purchase is not only about deprivation. It becomes a small yes to something you care about more. If you share finances with a partner or family member, use the same idea together. A calm 20-minute conversation at the start of the month can prevent a great deal of confusion later. This approach fits beautifully with the Japanese idea of Kaizen, continuous improvement through small, steady changes. You do not need a financial transformation by Friday. You need one change you can repeat. 100 tiny decisions do not look dramatic on any single day, but they begin to compound into a life with more margin, fewer surprises, and more choice. There is an important caution here. A Kakeibo notebook should not become a tool for self-punishment. If you have a month with medical expenses, family responsibilities, job uncertainty, or simply less income than usual, the right response is not guilt. It is clarity and compassion. Adjust the plan. Protect your essentials. If you carry high-interest debt or feel overwhelmed by your financial situation, consider speaking with a qualified financial counselor or advisor in your area. Awareness is powerful, but it works best alongside practical support. To start today, you need only one notebook and a pen. On the first page, write the month and the 4 questions. How much money do I have? How much would I like to save? How much am I actually spending? How can I improve? On the next page, list your fixed expenses. Then choose a savings amount that is realistic for this month. Divide the remaining money loosely between needs, wants, culture, and unexpected expenses. Leave room to write each purchase as it happens. Here is a simple 7-day experiment. For the next week, do not try to become a perfect budgeter. Do not suddenly ban every treat. Just record every expense, including the small ones. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to write down what you spent and why. At the end of the week, look for one pattern. Maybe it is a spending trigger. Maybe it is a habit that already serves you well. Maybe it is an expense you are happy to keep. The goal is not to judge the story. The goal is to finally read it. And if you prefer an app, you can still use the Kakeibo mindset. The notebook is a tool, not a test. Use an app for the transactions and a journal for the weekly reflection. Use a spreadsheet if that makes the numbers clearer. What matters is the sequence. Know what you have, choose what to save, observe what you spend, and reflect on one improvement. The system should serve your life, not become another task that drains it. There is something quietly hopeful about this method. It reminds us that financial confidence does not begin with a higher salary, a perfect investment, or a complicated dashboard. Those things may matter, but confidence often begins earlier, in a much smaller moment. The moment you decide to look honestly at the money already in your hands. A notebook cannot guarantee wealth, but it can help you build the habits that make wealth more possible: awareness, intention, patience, and reflection. It can help you spend on the things you truly value, prepare for the things you cannot predict, and stop letting the small, forgettable choices make all the decisions for you. So tonight, find a notebook. Write the 4 questions. Start with the truth of this month, not the fantasy of a perfect one. And remember, quiet wealth is not about looking rich. It is about having enough clarity to make your money support the life you actually want to live. If this gave you a calmer way to think about money, subscribe to Quiet Wealth. Here, we explore timeless ideas from money, psychology, habits, and culture, so you can build more freedom, one thoughtful decision at a time. Until next time, build wealth and live quietly.